All right. Call to order this meeting of the Town of Oregon Plan Commission. It is Tuesday, February 15th, 2022, 6:35 PM. And we do have two petitions this evening for public hearing. First of which, John Hageman. We have a John Hageman here this evening. All right. John, would you like to inform the Plan Commission and the residents in attendance what your plans are?
Yes, plans would be to build a home on the corner of Meadowpoint and Chantry Road. Taking 5.01 acres to making rural residential.
Just to refresh our memories, you were here about 2 years ago and we started the process.
Started the process, and COVID hits, we put everything on hold. Now we're back on.
So we're kind of
It's not
stuck.
going anywhere. Prices are jacked up now, and well, here we go.
Has anything changed with the petition?
Nope, nothing's changed. Just it's fine.
Okay. Questions from neighbors?
I do.
Name and address, please.
Raymond Hilgers, 5607 Netherwood Road.
All right, Raymond, what would you like to address?
The driveway.
Okay.
I'm worrying about the driveway, the grade of the driveway, the placement of the driveway, and flooding my lot out. Because it all flows west off that land.
Oh, Arlen, did you?
I have been out there, and like he says, it flows west. His lot flows east. There's a fence line there. To me, that's a high spot. And if we put that driveway in the way he's talking, keep it level with the terrain that's there now, because you dig out to put gravel in. And then keep it the same height as what you've got. All that water on the west side of that fence is gonna go west. From what I can see. I don't
But-
know how he thinks it's gonna get
But
over
now-
on the east side of that.
Now, the problem with that is he gonna allow water to go across the driveway every year? Now, if you guys don't mind, I wasn't capable of getting a whiteboard out here. And this is what the lady told me to do, is do this. And we can figure this out right here. It's very simple. Copy for everybody. You're welcome. Welcome. You betcha. I asked for a whiteboard, and they said no. So this is how we got to do it.
This is how we used to do it.
I know, I did this. It's not that big of a deal. Up there. And you also, sir.
Thank you.
All right, now, can I stay up here or should I sit that back on?
You're fine right where you're at.
Okay. As far as I understand,
You're 5607, correct?
yes, I could understand what he's trying to do is put his driveway in between those two trees.
Yep.
Now, the first tree from my lot line is 50 feet, the other one's 135 feet. All right? So if you take the center of that, that's 115 feet. And we're just doing averages. You need to be 5 feet off that lot line anyway. So if you,
10 feet, just so we're all clear.
Roger Lane said 5.
That's
10 feet north township.
Okay, that's fine. Whatever you want to say. That just changes my numbers a little bit. But if you come in between those two trees at 115 feet, I took 5 feet off because of 5 feet from the lot line. At 30 degrees, you're gonna sit at about 220 feet by the time you hit your second 30 on that road, which would be past my lot line. All right, at 45, you're looking at 160 feet. Those are true 45s, those are true 30s. I understand that you don't. But now, if Mr. Hagman would come in at, let's say, 110 feet or 115 feet, come in, turn and shoot towards my back lot line, I have no problem. And a culvert. That way, when he comes in, his lights are shining on my property, they're shining in this, the backfield, Mr. Cleaver's field. And I have no problem with this. And if he agrees to this, I'm fine. But I also wanted in writing that it's gonna happen. And I want the culvert in here to be able to drain this triangle. And that's my proposal right now.
Follow it, Arlen?
That culvert he's putting out in the road in between them two trees. That triangle, he's got to clean out the trees, but like we talked. And it will drain from there into the culvert, and that goes west right there.
It goes east. It floods my end of my driveway every year.
Your driveway, yours is over there. We're over here on his driveway, I'm talking.
I understand that. Now, there's only one other thing that I'm asking for this proposal. You see the last circle close to the end of my lot line is an old oak tree that is dying. I want that gone. The other two circles are two hickory trees that I would like to keep. The rest of them can all go. That's my proposal, guys. And I have no problem with this. Because I got 115 feet one way and 200 feet the other way. In that triangle with a culvert in there. And I'm happy.
The culvert you're talking on the road.
Nope, I'm talking a second culvert. I'm talking a culvert in between. Basically where that little light is. Somewhere around there.
That leans back down this way. He's got 10 feet there to drain that back down into this culvert that's going to go west on the road.
You think it's gonna go west, but it doesn't. If you ever see my end of my driveway every year, that thing flows from east or west to east. It doesn't drain on Netherwood Road going towards Fish Hatchery. It never has.
That's the way it runs down into that pot.
No, it doesn't. Well, no, but the dish line doesn't.
The ditch line does, right?
The dish line goes towards Fish Hatchery Road.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's where his culvert is going to be, in the ditch line.
Exactly. So then what's gonna happen, it's gonna flow east and it's gonna flood the end of my driveway. I've lived there for 62 years. That house has been there for 62 years, guys. I've seen this.
Your thoughts, John?
Yeah, I mean, looking at it, I mean, I'm gonna be accommodating. I'll do whatever I can for sure. That's the only thing I wonder about the second culvert is if the driveway is already be level with the ground, then you'd have to dig underground and then create maybe a trench.
That's right. The second culvert was only because I don't know, and you guys have not given it to me. You will not give me the placement of this driveway, and you will not give me the grade of this driveway. I want to make sure that this grade is not higher than my land. And that's what I'm asking for.
I would say it's not. I was out there I was out there by myself, I guess, when I looked at it.
Yeah, the property does start to go uphill
Right, go up, yeah,
towards where the house is. I mean, the driveway from here to here, where the house will be, I mean, it's about 900 feet driveway.
Exactly. I just want you to come in where you want to come in between those trees and hit this line before you make your second curve.
Sure. The plan was, because like right about here, where those two trees are, I'd come in right here and just straight
As
out.
long as you're past my lot line, I'm happy.
Is that workable for you, John?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Like I said, it was just gonna come.
Otherwise, we can put a retention pond in that little corner. I don't care.
Seems about right where.
DNR is gonna worry about that, so,
So this tree that you're talking about,
what, my oak?
the one that's further back,
Yes,
the one you want to get rid of.
right here, it's right on that lot line, it's been there forever.
It's right on the line or it's on one
Yes,
side or the
and
other?
actually, the fence line goes right straight through it. There was a hickory tree right here that fell 2 years ago and hit my house and took a corner of my house out. And I fixed my house, I cut the tree, and I didn't say anything to anybody. I realize I live out in the country, so this shit happens. Oops, sorry. But there's two little hickory trees. There's one right about here and one right about there that I would like to keep.
So what are you asking? I guess I don't quite follow. Are you asking for that tree to be taken down?
Yes, it's gonna be taken down.
At whose expense?
And whose lot?
It's
line?
on his land, not mine, or his aunt's land. Not mine,
I thought you said it was right on the fence line.
it's on the fence line.
The lot, your lot stake is inside of it.
I don't know, to be honest with you, but the fence goes right straight through the middle of it.
I see there's a jog in this plan here. Where's this 5.5 or the 6 foot?
That jog is the 5 foot that Roger Lang said that I had to give you, or he had to give me off my lot line. I didn't know it was 10 feet for Oregon.
Oh,
Sorry,
I got
I'm a pipe bender. I've been in the trade for 35 years. And so at 30, I understand how long it takes to take the 30. All I'm asking for is a nice little bend in that driveway, hit these two corners that intersect and take the driveway up that. Is what I'm asking for, guys.
it. I think John has indicated that he's willing to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm still on the tree.
As far as.
I want the tree gone.
I like burning wood a lot, so I'll cut that down.
I mean, it is huge. It's been there since 62. I was there when we built the house. It's a pain in my butt. It drops, it's half dead. So even if he comes up and this tree is sitting right here and his driveway's coming through here, he's not gonna want that tree there anyway, because it's gonna just keep dropping branches off.
It doesn't sound like there's gonna be an issue there either. Arlen, you got your hand up.
Yeah, we're dealing with not certain fuzzy things here. Can there be a map drawn of where the driveway is, which is not on this? Seems like it's very important to the neighbor.
Sure.
And want the neighbor to say, yeah, that's what you agreed to, that's what I agreed to. So the way this is sitting right now, I'm not seeing, I don't know what you're talking about.
You're right. Exactly. I can draw that out. And actually, that's why I had this bump out right here, was so I can come in at an angle. Otherwise, we're just going straight to the road. But there's two old trees that are sitting right there that I do not want to get rid of.
Is this a fair representation of where the trees are?
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know the distances. I didn't measure it, but 50 feet from his lot line, that could be definitely right about there for that first tree that you see.
I had a measuring wheel. I went up
There
there.
you go.
Okay, if you've got somewhere between the 50-foot tree and the 135-foot tree, that's sort of representing what's
Yeah,
there.
yep. So that's where the driveway would go
Are
in between
you,
those two
so
circles.
if the first tree, I'm going to mark that as A.
Sure.
The second tree is going to be B. So first tree, second tree.
Yep.
There's 3 more trees shown here. Do you agree that there's 3 more trees there?
There's a whole bunch of
I'm
trees.
sure there are. I've never really noticed them, but I'm sure they're there.
Okay, and are we talking about this last tree?
The last tree I want gone. The other 2 trees are 2 hickories. They're kind of smaller hickories. I'd like to keep them. The squirrels will love them and I love the squirrels, so. I mean, to me, It's past where, let me see, guys, this one is past where you're gonna cut all that stuff in the corner for his view.
So if I'm looking right here, this is a tree to go.
Yes,
So you're somewhere betwixt here and here's a driveway. And then that driveway,
We'll keep going in that direction until it hits about right about here, just past his.
so that's gonna go parallel to that westerly line. And sort of be heading to the rear of the lot line.
yes,
And then it turns
straight up.
to go
Straight to the.
house lot.
Right, John?
About how far from the property line do you think it'll be?
So driveway,
How far will the edge of the driveway be from?
at least 10 feet. I mean, whatever the city
Gotta
is,
be,
it's
yeah.
gotta be at least 10 feet, but I don't exactly know exactly how wide this point is. Well, this says it's 40 feet right here. So does
Yeah.
it say on here 66, 60, yeah, so this is 60 feet.
Well, you looks like you may be, okay.
All right, maybe, yeah, that's gotta be lengthwise, 66 feet.
So it says 66 feet where that little pinch point is. When you come over 6 feet, then you pinch it a little less than 66 feet. Oh, it just said the note there says 66 foot width from the corner. So you may be as close as 10 feet to that.
Right. I don't know how wide driveways are. Is there a common width?
We have a driveway ordinance that would give that.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, the plans were just to do it right dead in the center. So however wide the driveway is minus.
The county requires 66 feet of road frontage, that's why.
Okay,
So
so
the narrowest that we do allow.
So just for, we've got, the recording doesn't say much about hand waving and maybe about this, maybe about that.
sure,
Stephanie likes to have things a little bit definite.
sure.
If you don't have a plan, maybe we could be starting with this is your intent and that you're going to come back with a plan that we can compare to this. If you could take a look at this to see if that has some semblance to what it is you're doing.
Yeah, yep. I mean, it's definitely gonna look like that.
Okay, and then you're going to have one culvert in the ditch.
Yep.
And is there any other culvert?
I mean, I'm gonna work with the builder, see if we can call for a second culvert, if we can make that happen. So I'll be more accommodating for it.
Exactly, I mean, it depends on the grade of the driveway.
Okay,
So, because if the grade is only so high, a culvert there is not gonna help any.
okay, so if
I
you're,
mean, I'm not stupid, so.
this is good. And so if you could be coming.
Yes.
Does this represent what it is that you're talking about?
Like I said, as long as I know that this triangle sits there, I'm happy with this. I've asked from day one to get some kind of drawing of your driveway. Because this is my property, and I have to pick my property. I have to protect my property. And if you're gonna come down and Roger Lane said only 5 feet, and if you're gonna take 5 feet all the way down, I can't accept that. So, because I don't know the grade, so I don't know the placement or the grade of this driveway. And this is all it's is hanging on, is this.
Okay, so this represents.
That I accept,
you
as
accept
long
this?
as you,
Absolutely.
Could you initial this or sign this and date this and say, this is your intent?
I don't, I don't want intent. So I want writing.
Well, this is the closest we got. It's my bad penmanship.
Okay, no, that's fine.
That's here.
I just didn't want the light shining in my house. I didn't want this or that happen, the water and all the rest of it. Snow plowing and all the rest. Sure.
Like I was saying, what is like a standard depth for a driveway? 15 feet wide?
10.
10? So,
Yeah. 10?
11 is ordinance.
So if it's 11 feet wide, the driveway, minus that
It's
from
gotta be 10
66.
foot off the.
So you had 21 feet,
You
and
own
then
the
another
altar-
5
you own the
feet,
altar.
Yes.
or another 10 feet.
So if I build it in the middle, you're looking at least probably more than 15 feet clearance between, the fence line. So it's, be well past that 10 feet away from your property.
All right,
That's all right, John Hagman, make this plan my intent for the drive. You see this?
I've done the driveway off there already. so
I would like for that to go to the town board meeting. So,
This, what, certainly, I give it to
With your
Stephanie
recommendation?
to be making copies of that. So it'd be best if you could follow that up with more timeline.
Yeah, we haven't designed the driveway or anything, the builder yet. We haven't gotten that far, but I'll see what, you guys can take this image and put a driveway on there.
That's typical. People will measure it out on their preliminary CSM and put a driveway in there, or even sometimes buildings if you have, or you intend to build a house that are, you see that one, just right on your CSM.
Raymond, have we come to an agreement on the driveway? The trees, feeling good about this?
actually, I am only because when I looked at it and I thought about it, I thought, okay, he's gonna come in. The only issue I'm gonna have is that I want him that second turn on that driveway to be past my lot line. All right?
I think he-
Only because then at least I have enough room in between his driveway and my drain field, which is another one that's sitting out there, is 5 feet away from that lot line. And you start ripping all these trees out. That's the other issue I have, is ripping these trees out and the stumps out and disturbing my drain field. That's my other problem.
I haven't put anything in there about removing the tree. I think that's between neighbors to be.
I think they're agreed to.
That they
work together.
Because once he sees it, once you see the tree, you're gonna take it down. Now, everybody else, now he's also gonna clean that fence line up, get rid of the fence, the old fence that's sitting
That
there,
what you
and clean
decided?
all that corner up.
I
Correct?
think he's decided to take a fence line out.
Okay,
Yeah, I wasn't planning on removing any fence line.
okay.
I was gonna leave it up.
I just wanted to make sure I'm not stuck with some barbed wire sitting over there and a couple fence posts. And just because he cleaned up enough for his view of sight.
Any other concerns, Raymond?
As was the driveway and the septic. That was, and the light's gonna come into my house, but if we do it the right way, it's just gonna shine into Todd Cleaver's field. And I have no problem.
Anyone else have questions or? concerns? That's John.
Looks like me. It should be clear.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the second petition. We'll come back to this in 2 minutes. Second petition, is Jason Diaz. Oh, Jason's here. Get your map up here in a second here. Jason, you want to tell us what your plans are?
Copy of.
Yeah, so it's Jason Diaz,
And I know
we are
it's,
splitting or doing a rezone for 2 lots on existing 57
Thank
acres
you.
that we own.
Try and get it to the
Just on the
easiest way.
south end of
ready?
township, the neighbor to Brian, to the east side. We're planning on building a house on one of the lots. Going into this year, but this is the first step to go through and get the rezone set up.
Okay, we're gonna get your map up here in a second.
Yeah, sorry. So.
Bob Talar's been pretty busy in town.
Yeah. Okay. Got a nice.
Yeah, it's a nice aerial view.
This is the CSM and then. Oh, I better go up. There you go.
So this would be the driveway coming in off Wilderness Way. And then we're planning on putting the house right here. Then we have the second lot. We have it set up for 2 acres. This was 66 feet width is what we had planned on. Much like the previous zone, so. Any questions?
First, we'll ask neighbors if they have questions. Neighbors, other residents, any questions? Jeff?
Hello, I'm Jeff Bartig, 277 Wilderness Way. The lot directly north is where I live. Been there, yep. Been there for 27 years. I guess questions and concerns I have is, I guess personally, big concern is just that my view is going to be changed a bit. But then additional questions I have is drainage through the area. This is off to the east is basically a large valley, steep sided valley in places. And all of the water drains basically through the middle of the right lot, goes out through the field, goes through the middle or part of the second lot, and then through the lower part of my property. And so curious how the drainage is going to be handled. And then also curious about utilities. And whether those will be underground or whether I'll have poles going across the backside of my property.
I can touch on the waterway. I had the county out last year. It's designated not a navigable waterway. I've got the letter and everything for it. I can show everybody for that. So they went out and tested everything, basically from here west. Deemed it wasn't navigable. So
I'm not going to take a boat through it, but I mean,
right.
when there's heavy spring melts or summer storms, I mean, there's six inches of water flowing through that area. So I'm just curious, putting a house in the middle of
Yeah, it would be built up over that and then drained around it. What it'd be.
When you put your house on that property, it really helped my property. I didn't have the washing. You sodded your lawn and everything, and it really helped my property with the washing coming across. So it really slows it down, and this will do it even more so, I guess. So,
And then, yeah, we're looking at potentially doing CRP and stuff up in this field too, Jeff, so, which is obviously gonna help with erosion and soil control, so. That's obviously not set in stone yet, but we're looking at doing that.
utilities, any?
I haven't discussed that at all yet, to be honest with you, so.
Yeah, typically we don't do that here. That's so that will be up to the owner of the property.
I'm sorry, what was the concern, Jeff?
just am I going to have power poles going
Oh, sure.
in addition to 2 houses and a driveway?
Yeah, I can certainly discuss that and look at options.
Any other questions? Yes.
My name is Alice Holbrow. I live at 334 Wilderness Way, so right at the top of the street. And I did have a general question, but also just more specific to follow up on Jeff's about drainage. And I've been trying to understand zoning and stuff, so forgive me if I have this wrong. But when I was looking into this, I found a town planning document that said lots containing long, narrow means of access shall not be approved unless lot contains at least 2 suitable sites for drainage. And that does look like a long, narrow access. So I just wondered, Jason, when you did the planning, did it include 2 suitable sites for drainage?
It didn't come up with the conversation with the county at all.
Well, looks like that's a town planning document.
Well, they explained that it had to be 66 feet access point from wilderness, and that was essentially what it related to.
Are you referring to the town code about 2 suitable drain fields for septic?
Yeah,
That's a little different situation.
but isn't that part of the approval of the lot? And again, I'm sorry if I'm ignorant, I'm in the wrong place with this.
So Jason will have to get a permit, a sanitary permit for his septic. That'll all be through the county. County takes care of that. They will advise him if he has any issues with his property as far as location. So he'll be working through the county on that.
Okay, so that was my specific question, and then I have just a more general question that again may show my ignorance of zoning, but like I read through the comprehensive plan and it emphasizes over and over again about the desire to maintain the rural nature, to prevent residential building on farmland. And so this is all zoned as farmland preservation right now. So I guess I don't understand when there's such strong language in the comprehensive plan, why it would just be okay to split off a residential lot.
So the best way I can explain, our township is what we call exclusive ag zone. And this goes back, we entered into exclusive ag zoning in December of 1994, so a long time ago. And there was a concern about all the housing that was development that was taking place on farmland. So it was agreed between the county and the townships that if you entered into this exclusive ag zoning, that you would only build one house for every 35 acres of property that you own. That would limit by a great amount how many houses could go on, say, a particular farm. And so we have been following that plan ever since 1994. And now on the Grundy property, which Patrick Grundy owned it prior to Jason, these are the last two, what we call splits. These are the last two 35-acre divisions. We don't require that, some townships do require that you have to have a full 35 acres in order to build a house. We think that's a waste of farmland. We think what Jason's doing is the better route, where you only take about, what are they, 4
This
acres?
is 2.5, and that's 2. That's 4.5.
So you got about 5 acres that you're taking out of farmland and putting 2 houses on. And we feel that's a far better arrangement than taking 70 acres to put 2 houses on. So, so that's how we're set up in this township, I guess.
And
And
that-
we have honored this, the exclusive ag zoning, the 1 to 35s, like I say, since 1994. And it's, I think in this case, actually, Jason's maybe doing the neighborhood a favor by limiting the size of his lots and leaving the majority of the land in farmland. So,
This is all gonna be possible.
Tim,
Well, I can't say that I find myself in agreement with that, because what's to prevent someone else who was part of that 35 to come in and ask for 2 more acres, 2 more acres, 2 more acres? It's, if we don't honor our farm plan, which is calling for us to limit unplanned growth on farm preservation, it interferes with people's view. I think this might be a long way to approve small lots instead of treating a larger farm preservation parcel as the whole that people in the neighborhood are expecting. I don't see how small lots helps any of the things, the big pictures that we've tried to put into the town plan.
oh,
And that
Number one.
was certainly my kind of perception when I read through the comprehensive planning, that it was really trying to get away from exactly this kind of thing. And there are a lot of large lots in that neighborhood. And so my concern is if this kind of thing is approved easily, then it sounds like we're really changing the nature of that area and not really following the letter and intent of the comprehensive plan. So, and Brian, what you said about this being a better way, and my impression was that there could only be one residential building on that entire lot. So I don't understand why adding a second residential lot is a better approach.
So let me go back. I probably didn't do a good job of explaining.
Can I add one more question?
Okay.
But then you can explain. Rundy's property originally, going back to 1994, which is right before we acquired the 5.5 acres from Rundy, which was not part of that.
You were platted.
Yeah, we were in the plat for Bellwood Hills. That was 65 acres in 1994. You said that for every 35 acres, you got 2 splits, yet he had insufficient land for 2 splits in 1994. So go ahead and answer.
Okay, first I'll answer your question.
Okay,
We are what they call a roundup township. So if you are more than halfway to the next split, you get rounded up to that split.
okay,
So 35 times 2, obviously 70.
right.
But because you are more than halfway after you get the first split at 35, you are more than halfway to the next 35. You round up and get that split. That's the way our township is set up. So getting back to your question. Back in December of 1994, all property that was owned exclusive ag was divided by 35 acres. All properties that were zoned exclusive ag were divided by 35 acres, and that told you how many splits or development rights were allowed on that property. Every time we allow or have a petition come forward here, we require a density study done at the county. They go back and double check to see how many development rights are left on the property going back to 1994 when that math was done. So both Patrick Rundy had done the density study at the county, and it showed that there were 2 splits left, 2 development rights left on his property. Jason bought the property, those splits, he went to him, that he splits stay with the land. So that's why he's allowed 2 development rights or 2 lots on the property.
And I thought that the initial property had a split that was sold to the Cutzes more recently, and that was the second allowable split. So to my mind, this would be the 3rd split.
The Cutzes bought land, but they didn't buy a split.
Okay,
There was no splits attached to the property that they bought up on top of the hill.
Okay.
So
well, I guess I understand what you're saying. I certainly prefer Tim's interpretation, which I think is more to the heart of the comprehensive plan. But it sounds like this is just the way the zoning functions.
yeah, the exclusive ag zoning, like I say, we've had it here since 1994, and it supersedes as far as, I mean, those, you can't take those splits away from the landowners at that time. They made quite a sacrifice to allow only 1 development for 35 acres. They could have had hundreds of more houses out there, maybe thousands. And so they made quite a sacrifice back in 1994 to agree to only 1 development for every 35 acres. And we have honored that, as has the county. Nobody's attempted to take that away from the landowners of that time.
Yeah, too, we did do the density study last year too, and it did come with 2 splits that you're talking
So, yeah, we're pretty careful about making sure that any development that takes place is allowed for. It's through use of a density study, and both the county, and if we have questions here at the township, we'll run our own. You know, those of us that can remember back to 94 anyway, how everything got divided out.
Okay, so there can be no other residential building on that center lot.
No,
Is that correct?
no,
Or-
he's allowed 2 lots, 1 house per lot. This property will be deed restricted after these two lots are created. And there will, unless at some point the township changes from exclusive ag zoning on that property, there'll never be any more houses there.
Okay, well, I appreciate the explanations. I feel like environmentally, it's not the best way to go. And like I said, I don't feel like it is to the heart of the comprehensive plan, but that's the way it is. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, name and address,
Yeah,
please.
I'm Ivor Grislis. I live at 326 Wilderness, just south of Alice, lot 1, Bellwood Hills. And yeah, I had the same concern as Alice, really. It's like farmland preservation. It would seem that's for posterity, the agricultural land. But anyways, but my question really is about I was digging around last night, and in the Wisconsin statutes, there's something about non-farm residences, 91.46(2). I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, but it says that the ratio of non-farm residential acreage to farm acreage will not be greater than 1:20 after the residence is constructed or converted to a non-farm residence. Does that apply? This 1:20 thing?
So the ratio you're referring to is every time property is rezoned from FP, which is farm preservation, into, in this case, it's RR, which is rural
So this-
residential. It counts against your farmland preservation. And this is another reason why it's nice in this case that the lots are just a couple acres each, because that will mean the majority of the acres is going to stay in FP zoning. And that helps us with our farmland preservation. You have to stay above all the potential or available property for farmland preservation. You have to stay above 80%. In other words, you can only develop up to 20% of that property before the state gets involved and says, we got a problem here. So
Isn't it, how big is the property? I looked up I think it's 38 acres. Is that correct?
what's that?
Isn't the property like 38 acres? The
57.
57,
lot we're talking about? Oh, okay.
close to 60. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. So that still doesn't fulfill 20 to 1, but. I don't know.
So well over 80% of it's going to stay in farmland. And
Oh,
that's what the state looks at.
okay, and then it says the location size of the proposed non-farm residential parcels won't convert private farmland from agricultural use or convert land previously used as cropland if there's a reasonable alternative location or size. Or it won't significantly impair or limit the current or future agricultural, well, I guess that one doesn't apply, sorry. So I think it's saying that if the lot's using up agricultural land, a preferred thing would be to have an alternative. I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, I just was digging around.
One thing that we try to avoid in our township is putting a house out into the middle of a property and a driveway bisecting the farmland. We always want to try and keep as much farmland together as we can. And in this situation, we would have no problem with this setup.
There's gonna be access right through here to farm this heath field. And then this is still all gonna be farmed until if and when that lot gets sold off or family develops it or something, not develops it. So
Which lot are you building on, Jason?
This one.
Right there.
So there will be an easement through that lot to get to the farm field behind
We don't
it,
need one just because we own it.
but that will be a
That's where
separate
the
property
farmer will
from,
access to get to the backfield.
so that'll be a separate parcel then from the
There is
35 property.
There is an easement from the circle area there. There is an easement. I guess.
So Jason, when you just said that middle, when that gets resold or developed,
Not developed, I misworded.
okay, so that,
If we sold it, and somebody built the house there, then this wouldn't be farmed. The house there.
I guess the question I'm asking is, say, 30 years from now, you've sold the house, you've sold the remainder of the farmland to somebody else, and they're now owned by separate people. How will the farmland be
We would
accessed?
do an easement.
I'm
So-
sorry, I didn't understand what you just said, because now you just said if somebody bought that and put a house on it.
This one,
Yeah, but, oh, that one. Okay, I thought you were talking about the big lot in the middle, which I thought. Thank you.
So there is a shared driveway easement, Jeff, from where the circle area would be.
Yep.
All the way down, even further, right there. That's a shared driveway easement,
Mhm.
so that he'll have to have a shared driveway easement agreement. And both of those properties would have access. Be able to use that driveway.
Right, but there's 3 properties we're talking about ending up with here.
Here, if there's the easement, don't get the system.
And so
The farmland you're referring to?
Yes.
The third property, yeah, they'll be able to use that as well, so.
How will they get to the third property?
this is,
Right there, yeah.
Here. Basically, right where that box stops is where the 34 feet will be, equipment will be able to get through there.
You're gonna keep working with Gary Lee?
Corey's
Corey's gonna run.
another thing that may be worth mentioning is because, well, if and when they become eligible or when he builds, wouldn't he have to pay a ag conversion fee because he's taking the land out of agriculture?
As far as fees go, in our township, every lot that's created, is a $2,000 fee per lot for the township. The county also has the conversion fee. I'm not gonna try to tell you what it is because it changes every year. But the state used to have a conversion fee as well, anything taken out of FP zoning. But the state has taken their fee off anymore. It's not being utilized, it hasn't for a while now, so. So the county, the township fee, you will have to pay when, after the petition goes to the county, to come back to the township for a final signing. And I believe that's when the fee will be collected at the township. It's also they'll want to collect the shared driveway agreement, something that you probably should have drawn up by an attorney.
Yeah, I just started talking to him last week.
Okay. As I understand, the county fee, Andy knows this, it probably is not collected till after the house is built, is that right? I'm not sure about that anymore. That's the way I understand it, but I'm sure they'll be in touch.
Sure.
I believe that's.
Yeah. So. One thing I'm gonna point out to the plan commissioners, we get talking about the easement. If you notice the lot on the left, 66 feet going out to the easement. There was a time when the county would not allow that. That would not satisfy their 66 feet of road frontage requirement. That easement's not considered a public road. However, they now have at chapter 75 easement language that says that you can access up to 4 houses with one 66-foot easement. So that that is now allowed at the county level, whereas at one time it would not have been. No, only 4 houses. So you get over 4 houses, then you got a subdivision. Well, that's so. I just thought I'd point that out to you. We're putting that language in our land use plan. As I mentioned more than once, Majid Allen said that we probably have enough language in our plan to allow for it. We did it on Dale Sector's property. But if you're updating your plan, it would be good to get the specific language in the plan. So this is a situation where you're using. And so I just thought I'd point that out to you while we happen to have it up there on the screen.
CSM shows where it stops too.
Any other questions for Jason? Any of the plan commissioners' questions?
Is Bellwood Hills a subdivision or not? Yes. Would the proximity of these two lots to that subdivision mean that those two lots are part of the subdivision such that they'd be subject to any covenants or agreements that are in the subdivision?
There are no covenants left.
Everything's expired.
Yes.
They are outside of the subdivision.
I'm asking a question because if we're going to attach something adjacent to it, I would like to know whether it's going to be conditions other than what we know about, but you're saying they are expired.
They expired about 15 years ago.
Yeah, that subdivision's been around a while.
Yes, yes.
I used to think it was a cul-de-sac, but Bob Pilarczyk was explaining to me that it's not
It's on the plat map. It's drawn as a temporary cul-de-sac,
temporary.
Yeah.
Okay.
although it's paved now, so it's a bit more permanent.
Yeah,
But it was dirt most of the time I've lived there.
yeah, that was, I think, nice. I know Jim and Jane had a little issue off and on with some kids going back there.
Yeah, they would have a lot of fun doing donuts in the dirt cul-de-sac.
Yes, yes. So I think that's been remedied now. I hope it has anyway.
I think the kids have gotten old enough that they don't do that
Maybe that's
anymore.
what it is. Arlen,
And where that easement comes off the cul-de-sac. If I remember right, Wayne can test, as that drops down like this. The town's gonna make you bring that up, so it's at least 20 feet flat before it gets on the cul-de-sac, because you start running gravel trucks and stuff up on there, you're gonna ruin our brand new road.
Sure. Yeah, it drops
Right,
down.
So that'll require a culvert in that area because
You
there's,
think 8 feet it drops down, 10 maybe?
yeah. Because there's water that drains through this area here also. So if you're building building this up, there's gonna have to be a culvert under there to handle the water flow.
I'm right into you then?
No. No, my house is at the highest point in that area, so,
Oh, I see.
and I've already got a culvert under my driveway.
who owns the property next to you, Jeff? What's Dave Stickelstead's at one time?
McFadden's,
Is that what? Yeah. What's their last name?
Bruce McFadden,
Ken? I've never met that guy.
blanking out on his name.
Dwayne.
Dwayne,
And the little lot, is that driveway included in the 2 acres?
This one here?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the driveway was included in 2.5.
That's not bad, because it's gonna take a half acre off of that building part there.
It's allowed though.
I just wonder if you'll have room for septic site on an alternate
Oh,
site.
yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I mean, not that it matters to us, but it wouldn't matter to you if you were selling.
Couldn't have no room for an extra building. That's for sure.
That would be the
This one
more
you're saying?
difficult part,
Yeah,
an accessory building.
right, yeah, you wouldn't have room for that.
Reach your own, it's your choice. So
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I'm following what.
he was saying that with that lot being 2 acres and a good half acre of it's probably taken up by the 66-foot flagpole there. That doesn't leave you a lot of space for an additional accessory building or that.
Plus 2 septic systems, 1 alternate, but you gotta have it, so. You gotta be. You 10 foot away, your driveway's gotta be 10 foot away from both lot lines, so it's gotta go right down the center. Don't leave any room on each side of that.
That's why they call it a preliminary CSM. You can still change it. Any other questions? Yes.
I got one more.
That kind of follow. I found out where I got the 30 acres. If I look up the parcel number and valuations,
It says 25 acres G4, 13 GSM.
So probably, there's probably more, it's probably, yeah,
The four tax parcels.
Oh, I see.
yeah, there's more than one tax.
There's one here, one here, one here, and.
Yeah, 4 of them on there.
The actual parcel being rezoned would be this one.
Should add up to what, 57%.
57.27.
And so we talked about that middle area never being able to have residential housing. Jason, is that right big area also part of your property?
Yeah.
And so would that ever be able to be rezoned for additional
No, there's
housing?
only two.
Okay.
And all that area going back to the woods, that all belongs to Jason as well. None of that would be eligible for any additional housing. So, unless, like I said, the township changes its exclusive ag zoning, which like I said, we've had since 1994. Never say never in that respect. But as of now, that's the way we set up. Andy, you had another question?
Yeah, I was just thinking in the future. Say that you build your house, and you sell it, you sell the other house. Is the rest of that land gonna be landlocked then, or do we need another access to that?
That was gonna be.
That's what I was asking earlier.
Right here.
And that's this here, Andy, here's the easement.
No, but that's a shared driveway agreement. That means it belongs to these people, these people. If they sell these two houses, that doesn't mean this has access to it. Unless he writes it in there.
Got to write it into the easement.
East to the field on the right,
Yeah, correct.
so that
Yeah.
easement going across there is gonna make that lot pretty small too.
See, actually, your easement can, and it already does, allow you to get into the land
On this side,
on this side.
but there's all trees down below to get to the one on the other side. Is the one he's talking about. He's gonna
No,
put these,
that's all.
it looks like all trees to me.
Oh, yeah.
He said he was gonna put an easement across the top of his lot.
I got you. I understand what you're saying.
But it's not on here.
Yeah, because we own this right now. That's why we didn't put it on there.
We don't really have to give up that land either. You can just have that easement to the left. Giving up part of your lot to me.
Oh, sure.
I think that's just a suggestion.
You're saying, run it down here.
Bring it off of this side.
Oh, sure.
That doesn't taste any other roads.
If you ever sold that house and separated it from that woodland, you would have to, like I say, have an easement across.
We thought about running it right through here too, and even pushing this lot line up.
That might
But
be,
then it's gonna be 2.3 and the two sites that you're talking about earlier. It's actually that aspect of it.
but you wouldn't be required to have an easement now, because like you say, you own the property. We can't require it.
Yes, you can. It's a separate parcel. He's got 3 parcels there. And even though he owns the right one and also the surrounding land, there are 3 parcels. He needs an easement. He needs an easement that, or the access to the easement for all 3 parcels, not 2, but all 3. He would need to have a maintenance agreement that all 3 parcels are contributing to the maintenance of that easement, and that driveway. Even if he owns, and right now he's representing it, he's owning all 3 parcels. He still needs that driveway maintenance agreement for, or by 3, agreed to by the 3 parcels. So if he's got an easement that has access to the larger parcel, Great. A larger parcel needs to be party to the easement and the maintenance of that driveway.
Great.
That. If he's got his two splits, so he's taking his two splits, fine. He's fulfilling that. And you understand that you would have a deed restriction put on the balance, that there's no more lots to be
Correct, yep.
developed for that. So deed restriction.
So the lot you're building on, that's gonna be, or where's the house? gonna be?
Screw where the box is, maybe a little further south.
So the area below that will be farmed?
This, yeah, it might be yard, haven't really decided, but
It's only 2 acres.
I see where you're coming from, Arlen. In case they should sell the house separate from the land.
It's, as long as it's 3 parcels, he's got 3 parcels that have got to be proper party to the easement. The maintenance of that.
went back and forth with Bob on it for weeks and he's like, you can do either or. So, open to doing whatever. Bob.
I think our plan commissioners are gonna recommend that you have an easement, access that back part.
But it can all be part of the shared driveway agreement, because he could just do it off of that end for now, meaning like as long as there's an access point to the third parcel, then it can all be part of one agreement, just as long as they're each named separately, I'm guessing.
Certainly
If you
think so.
were looking to be having an easement between your property to the north and your property to be having access, you need to be having that on the survey. Not that you're sold and the next person is going to be needing that document in there, or the farm's gonna get cut off.
So Wayne, would you want to see that easement on the petition before it comes to the town board?
It has to be.
Yeah.
I agree with Arlen. If he sells that lot, that land is landlocked. There's gotta be an easement. You gotta do it all up front.
Got one more question on the road. We have Wilderness Way that ends in an undersized cul-de-sac. Pardon?
It was a temporary cul, it's not really a cul-de-sac.
What was gonna be the permanent cul-de-sac? Or anyway, either way, it's a dead end. And it's an undersized cul-de-sac. What is our current driveway? I didn't look up the current driveway
We just,
requirements.
we just put that one in,
That cul-de-sac?
that brand new cul-de-sac, and it's legal.
The one that's there?
The one that's there right now, we just put in a year ago. 2 years ago, whatever.
Okay, and that works with the buses?
Great Wayne, that's illegal. All right.
That does serve.
They were supposed to build it that way, yep.
And that's as far as we'll plow, right there. We won't plow down this easement.
Yeah, we'll stop right here.
Right, yep. And plow the cul-de-sac.
Enough question.
Any other questions for Jason? Okay, with that, we'll close the public hearing. And we'll move right into the business portion of our plan commission meeting. And the first item of business will be roll call. Stephanie.
Brian Buffin,
Here.
Aaron Christensen, Alan Kai.
Yes.
Dave Hickman,
Here.
Andy Blumstrom.
Here.
Alan Christensen,
Here.
Tim Yannick.
Here. All right, the first item of business regarding the public hearing would be the Hageman property. Start with you, Tim. Questions, concerns, whatever.
This is another example of land being taken out of farmland preservation. Is this the zoning protected by splits like the second petition?
I didn't catch that.
Is this petition the creation of a lot protected by.
How many splits
Conservation.
you can have?
Is there a split that is going to be used to create this lot?
Yes, the density study was done. Any other questions, Tim?
Oh, just my concern that seems, and I realize it's the law that we are working under, but it seems like it's awfully easy to take property out of farmland preservation, turn it into something that isn't farmland. If that's allowed, I don't want to interfere.
That is the policy. Andy?
I don't have any questions. Arlen with an E.
No, I gave that is, right what Randy got before from me. That was. All right.
Okay, David?
No, I'm good with everything. I see it's gonna angle it up so it now shine in, so Jason homeowner.
Maybe we'll make that part of the motion. Arlen with an A.
Yep, I was re-looking through the farmland preservation and the housing plan, not taking out active farmland. It is a larger lot. So I'm concerned about that, but he does have the split and he is following down the property line. And so has impact, but a lesser impact. I do want to have some reference made to an agreement to where the location of the driveway that is agreed to. And that comes back with a little more detailed driveway plan to compare to that.
When he goes to the town board.
Those-
I don't think he needs to come back.
Yes.
I'll make you make the motion on this, okay? Sharon?
The only concern I have is I see on the county rezone petition, there's no deed restriction required. And because it is just a tad over 5 acres, and our requirements for a building site are 2, down the road, there is a possibility that that could be split, even with the long driveway. Am I correct?
So let me ask you this, Sharon.
Yes.
It'll be rezoned, or that one's gonna be zoned what, R? Make sure I get on it. RR4. So our transfer development rights policy, would you like to make that property eligible for a TDR possibility?
No way, no.
What's that?
No way, no.
And we don't have a TDR policy.
Not yet, but
I don't want to act as if we're assuming that's going to.
I'm just looking ahead here. We are gonna allow possibly, it's all up to the town board, a TDR policy that would allow property zone RR and RM to receive splits if they so choose to buy a split. This is 5 acres, so it could support 2 houses. If you want to deed restrict the property, that would eliminate it from being eligible for TDR down the road.
Yes, I would.
How do the others feel? Arlen with an A, same question.
I'd have to agree with you.
David?
I get a little more thought.
Arlen with an E?
Should be deed restricted, that's what he wants, it's his own house.
So I can agree, Arlen.
I agree with them.
Andy?
I kind of got mixed feelings on this, but I guess I'll go along with the group. What they want to do.
Tim?
I think deed restriction is the way to go at this stage before we have any TDR policy.
Make it part of the motion. Arlen?
I make a motion.
Absolutely.
Let's see, make a motion. Do you have an application number?
Yep,
Right on the front.
it is on the
Okay,
very
there it
top
is. There we
there.
go. Thank you. to grant the petition for DCPREZ 2021-11-7-11784 parcel number 0509-044-8500-9 to grant the creation of the lot with the contingency that it had a deed restriction limiting it to one house, one residence on that 5-acre parcel, that the driveway follow the intent of the sketch that has been submitted by Mr. Hageman. Trying to think, did I miss something?
He said it.
You got it?
Yep, you got it.
Okay.
I think you got all the bases I was thinking of anyway. Is there a second to Arlen's motion?
I'll second it.
Arlen with an E seconds it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same.
We have to keep confusing the record.
Yeah, right.
Well, wrong.
So the plan commission is going to recommend to approve the petition. The next step in the process, at the town board meeting, I assume it's gonna be the first Tuesday in March.
March 1st, yes.
March 1st, okay. And I would suggest that you be here, John, so in case they have questions, you'd be here to answer them. And maybe bring a sketch of the driveway as you plan to put it in. So Raymond, is he still? Is he left? Okay. Raymond may attend, and you want to be able to show that you have satisfied his requests.
Can I say that sketch should have measurements on it? Should have distances on it so that we know where it's gonna go.
Sure. So I don't know if you want your surveyor to do it, or if you feel capable enough to get it together. But
Yeah, I'll probably see if you can just throw that on there.
I'm comfortable if you do it, but I just want measurements on there. So just-
So outside of it, you're good to go until that town board meeting on March 1st. We'll move on to the second petition, which is Jason Diaz. I'll start with you again, Tim. Any questions? Andy?
I guess I got a question for Arlen. See, is that driveway long enough that it requires a pump off?
300, I just looked at that. Was it 300
It's
something feet?
420.
I don't think.
420.
Or, yeah, 500.
So I have.
Okay. Arlen with an E. No questions, David?
No, as long as I was just kind of curious about if I hadn't been back there, to see how that turned out with the cul-de-sac, but the town guys will just plow and kind of stop there and then.
Plow
land
around
on the
and-
road.
Oh, yeah, it's like we-
No, so I'm fine.
Arlen with an A.
As long as the town is okay with the cul-de-sac that's out there now, I have less problem with the dead-end street. I do, we do need the driveway maintenance agreement. We do need to have, and I was back there and I was also looking at some of the drainage maps back there, and this is a very touchy drainage area. And I would like to see the applicant also have solution to how things are draining. There's a lot of things going back and forth in here. There's sort of a continental divide, sort of not a continental divide. It's down in the valley. A lot of it's running to the west. Some of it's looking like it's running southeast as well. So I think we need to have that. I would think it'd be appropriate to be having how this is draining, so that it's not adversely affecting these two lots and the adjacent lots.
You have that paperwork from the county? You said they came out.
Yeah, I've got a following email.
Just bring it to the town board.
Okay.
That would be very much bringing it there. And that the driveway agreement has the 3 parcels. And that if there's any other easements, that they be on the survey now. And that there's a deed restriction on the balance of the property, that there are no more lots.
Yep, that would, county will do that regardless, but it doesn't hurt for us.
I think that should be on the motion.
Only you won't have to worry about TDR because the lots aren't big enough to support a second house, so there would not be any TDR available for those 2 lots. Okay, Sharon,
I have no problems as long as we address all of the things in our motion that we've talked about.
see if we can remember all that.
I got wrote down.
One more. That driveway's gotta be built up onto the.
I was gonna add that as well, so.
You know, one concern I have, and I can see a solution to, is what happens, you know, when the cul-de-sac was there. Obviously, they could push the snow where the new access to those 2 lots are. But I guess they can push the snow the opposite direction too, I guess, so. That would be a concern of mine, because you got a driveway on each side, you can't fill them both up. You know, so you got 3 driveways there where they're gonna stop plowing. So they'll have to plow out rather than in, I guess.
Jeff, has that ever been an issue with plowing?
No, they push the snow to one side of my driveway and to the other side, it won't be an issue.
Okay. I guess they could back in there and plow the other direction, you know.
You understand the buildup to that? Right now, there is kind of a.
Yes, but where the plows push the snow today is not where the driveways.
But I mean, as far as probably will be wanting to build up part of Jason's driveway to match kind of the height of the circle area there.
Yep.
So that otherwise it's gonna be difficult on the blacktop to type of thing. Okay. Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve decision DCPREZ 2021-11784. With the following agreements. There'll be deed restricted on the rest of the property. There'll be a culvert placed on the new driveway. I don't know exactly where, but he had talked about getting the water from east side to the west side. And gentleman there said that it'll flow away from his house. That would get that culvert put in. Same time you're doing that, they'll build up the driveway near the end of the town road. Do you want to specify how many feet in you want that built up?
I don't think we will need to, township will decide that.
Right. And that there be a driveway maintenance agreement.
That's
Two
the
lots.
shared driveway agreement. It's part of the shared driveway.
Part of a shared
Yep,
driveway
yep.
agreement, and there's easement to the remaining lot. Is that what I want to say that?
Property to the east.
Yeah, 3 to the 3 parties, to the maintenance agreement for the 3 parcels. 3 parcels.
All easements will have maintenance agreements.
I think that's
Everything I can think of. Did I forget something, Arlen?
Could make a recommendation that they get, that have a drainage plan so that we're not adversely affecting the neighbors.
Of the county, bring that to the town board meeting. Want to add that to your motion, David?
Sure, and that you provide the county looked at water drainage records you have or documents to the town board.
Is there a second to David's motion?
Second.
Second by Arlen, Nathan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Okay, Jason, you're good to go as well. March 1st is the town board meeting, and if you could attend that, would be wise on your part and bring that county's drainage information in case they would like to see that. And talk to Bob about getting that easement put in place on. I assume he will put measurements on it.
Yeah.
So sounds like the town board would like to have the measurements. So, okay, I think we're good. We'll move on.
Yes,
Yes.
we did. Was paying attention.
Yeah, I remembered this month. Okay, approval of minutes from January. So moved by Tim, is there a second? Second by both Arlen's. All those in favor say aye.
Sharon.
Motion's approved. Public comments. Anybody have any comments tonight that they'd like to bring forth to the plan? Yes.
I just want to reiterate my disappointment that such a split is allowed. I understand the rounding and the policy, but I still think that it allows for a kind of constant subtle degradation of open space in the environment.
If it, not that it makes probably, or makes you feel any better. I believe there's what, 36 townships in the county. I think at least 30 of them are under the same exclusive ag zoning. And someday we co-zone with the county, so any zoning that we do is in conjunction with the county as well. That's what they're set up for. So it would be quite a change for us to go to something different, I guess.
You're right, it doesn't make me feel any better.
Yeah, I know.
But thank you for the explanation.
But duly noted, your concern. So, any other public comments? All right, we'll move on. Review and possible action regarding the town land use plan. I think all of you saw probably the email that I drafted. And it was sent out to all town board members as well as all plan commission members. You have a copy in front of you in case you want to refer to it. The one thing I did not put on here, anything with the farmland preservation. Brian Standing had told us that he was going to give us some options to look at regarding farmland preservation. He has not done that yet. So I didn't think it was appropriate that we make a recommendation to the town board on something we have not seen yet. So I did not address farmland preservation on these recommendations. Any feedback from the town board?
Town board would like to, I think on March 15th, we'd like to have a town board meet with us, go over some of these. And have Brian Standing here at the same time if we can, so we ask him some of the questions. So,
Absolutely, that'd be
if that's
great.
possible, you know.
That'd be great. We could get that set up. So, we'll-
Yeah, and Brian Standing is working on drafts of the pages discussed so far. And he had said that he will have some done by March 15th.
Okay.
So I will ask him to attend if that's what you guys wish, and go from there.
Anybody having a problem with,
Would he have these ideas ahead of time? so we
He
can
has
read
been
them
given,
Before that?
yeah, he has been, I'm not sure. But he has been given the changes or these suggestions to incorporate.
Sometimes it's easier. You can go over, I can go over it ahead of time, you know.
I did ask.
Yeah. He could do that.
To do that.
Then the town board's got something to go by.
I can't say that he will, I'm just gonna say, yes, I did ask him if you guys could have it in advance of the March 15th meeting.
End of day Friday, though, before something would be nice. Get it out on the
Right.
weekend, we could look at it.
And it can be part of the packets. Oh, yeah, Friday, yeah.
That'd be great if you could make it part of the package.
I'm gonna try to.
See if he could get it available.
Yep.
For that. Arlen?
Yeah, I want to thank you for putting together the 8 points as topics of discussion that you have there. I do think we need to be talking a little more detail and come to resolution as a town board on a couple of the, on all of these, but in particular, I'd like to address 5, 6, and 7. And 5 and 6 are really sort of the same thing. If you have the policy 1F that is in there, it actually has to do with the 2012 and ordinance 82 that was to be an amendment to our land use plan. Last meeting was the first time that both the amendment along with the ordinance had been going through, but the amendment had not been attached to it. And it seems like we can be accomplishing the correction of the 1F policy as the way we had wanted it. Because ordinance number 82 passed, it's a law. It's a law of the town of Oregon. It wasn't just a motion that we thought was great, went through there. It was passed with public hearing, it was the law. So the amendment that came in there, that's the amendment that we passed. And then it was tabled on the, by the CLR. It was never rejected. It was never accepted. It was tabled. So it's now time for us to be moving forward with that 82, ordinance 82 and policy 1F. And that is where we had, if you're reading through the documents that have been sent out by Jennifer, and MSA, the impact of the 1F. I hope everybody has been given that 1F policy. That's in there. It's rather extensive. It removes the 1F, but it has all the impact of what is going to be happening. And it affects about 100 properties. But it only really has, according to MSA's analysis, could be affecting or creating maybe 25 lots on those homes that were once in the RH district. This was a law. And well, I had been very much opposed to sort of resurrecting. It was time for, that I said, to move on and say, that's snookered by the county. Let's set it aside.
I appreciate you keeping your language clean.
Yeah, trying to keep the language clean. The horse is out of the barn burned down, and the horse is dead. Was, I think, the phrasing that I was using. But turns out that the barn didn't burn down. A law was passed. That was ordinance 82. And that is, you know, if you agree with the policy or you don't agree with the policy, it's an ordinance that was passed. And I think we have a responsibility, I had the public hearing, we have the responsibility to include it into the comprehensive plan. All of this undoing is going to be a taking.
So I think there were a couple questions that came out of that. One is, it would be good for Brian Standing to be here, but the county has never recognized the language in ordinance 82 as part of the land use plan. Not that they have anything to do with an ordinance, it's a township ordinance, I agree with you there. But the language was never changed in the land use plan as designated or directed by ordinance 82. So they're not following ordinance 82 at the county level.
That's,
And because we co-zone, it has been ignored or avoided, I guess, and we haven't used
well, that may be. So we passed it. We haven't rejected it. They haven't implemented it. And I've heard that we have, that the staff here has still it on the books and that they still recognize it. And that this is our, if we're going to have it, this is the time that you say, okay, I'll put it in there. And if there are issues or language changes or subtle ticks and gets and dots that they need to have to make it all there, this is the time to say, do it. And this is our plan. We passed it, do it.
So the second question. This was Brian Standing's. Get rid of it. If you feel you need to have additional development in the township, go with rural development. Don't go with this amendment where you're treating properties created, RH properties before 1994, different than you're treating RH properties after 94. You're going to end up with a lot of upset people. Why isn't my property eligible?
There is two answers to that. One is that it was passed. Yes, the object of having it, why can't it be mine? Why can't it be yours? Remember, there's also the thing of why did you take it away from me? Remember in 2012, this is going on, we're still in a depression of housing starts. Development was pretty shot. It's just not there, just too much inventory was out there, contractors going down, developers going down, property sitting empty. And now we're starting to have some action. It's still, if we rescind 82, which we'd have to do, you want to have the lawyers come out of the woodwork? That's going to happen. If we're going to, this is, like I say, it's a taking. And we have that. I don't think this is something that we can take away from the ordinance that we passed. We may not agree with it. I certainly agreed with Brian Standing at the time. Could have the rural development areas identified. I still think that's a good idea. We're going to be having some rural development identified where it should be. We've already said in our plan that it should be near and around existing housing areas. So yes, we need to identify the developed areas, but we also want to not get involved in a taking by rescinding 82 and just throwing away 1F without having it properly replaced. We can be amending. I think it's time that we may be amending the 1F section that we approved in 2012.
So let me ask you this question. We as a plan commission agreed that we did not have to have additional development in the township at this time. Yeah, we had plenty of splits yet to be used. By my count, somewhere around 150. Is there a need for this development on these RH properties?
I think that's beside the point.
No, I think it's a good point, because I think that comes to the root of whether you rescind it or not.
If you're going to I think if you're going to undo an ordinance that has, that was duly passed, public hearing and everything, you're going to be having all the people, not all, certainly a good number of the people that it will be affected, that it does affect, will be coming out and objecting.
The last thing I am is an attorney. We got one retired attorney down here.
That was the last thing I was too.
Um, As far as a lawsuit goes, concern, it's good that you bring it up. It's a concern. I would say that we as a plan commission are not expected to provide legal opinion, legal interpretation. Our town board, should they ever get a recommendation from the plan commission that they feel might have legal implications, that's when they should address their township attorney. I don't think we should do what we feel is appropriate from a land use standpoint and a zoning standpoint. That bumps into a legal implication. That's not for us to decide.
I think it is.
I think it's for our town.
I think it's very much for us to debate and discuss.
I think it's for our town board to decide. And for them to work with a township attorney. I don't think it's our job to work with a township attorney.
I didn't say work with the township attorney, but it's certainly up to us to be recognizing when there are legal issues.
There could be.
I think in 1994, we took a lot of rights away from people. And I was here when this happened. And this was a controversial thing. And it was pushed through by a few people that had special interest and would benefit from it. And it just got pushed right through. And I think it's time, it's something that the town board should address. It shouldn't be us.
You're
I mean,
talking,
they're the ones that's gonna rescind it or leave it. If they decide to leave it, then obviously they intend to give these people these rights. That's the decision for them.
They are our elected officials.
Right.
Tim,
I think our job as the plan commission is to make a recommendation. We are the experts on land use planning, at least within the township. I attended the board meeting and I understand Arlen with an E is going to report on the recent town board meeting, but when the question of the Lyman Anderson rule came up, one of the points that you raised, three, and one or two other points that you were asking for their opinion on, they didn't have, some of them had no idea what we were talking about. No idea whatsoever. We should be telling them what the Lyman Anderson rule is, how we propose to change it or make it better, but to throw it in front of them and tell them to fix something that we haven't fixed yet, I think is a big mistake. And it's,
I offered to present it and walk through it. But I was told that they would rather have a bullet point listing of things. So that's what I do.
I'm not being critical of you. I think though that upon further review, as they said during the Super Bowl, upon further review, I have a different view on a number of these points that we were asking the town about. So I think we should say what we think recommended Lyman Anderson rule should be, but I'm also against points 4 and 8, saying that some of our decisions are going to be made on a case-by-case basis, rather than based on what the town plan calls for. And we have people in the audience tonight who are, I think, correctly upset by our taking action that appears to be in violation or contradictory to what the plan is. But there's an explanation for it, which I think you did provide, Brian. But if we didn't have that explanation, if we didn't have our course already set out for us on this form. Anybody could come in here and ask us on a case-by-case basis, I want to do my commercial development, I want to do some rural housing development, and we don't have a plan that we can refer to say this is good or bad, or we're treating you different than we treated everybody else. I'm really worried about allowing rural development or doing commercial development on a case-by-case basis rather than sticking with our plan.
So I think that's a great question for Brian Standing. What I would tell you, Tim, is with TDR and with commercial, it is the county verbiage that I'm using. They're the ones that use the case-by-case language. And because we co-zone with them, we have to follow their zoning as well, their chapter 10. And so I am, when I write case by case, I'm taking that out of their verbiage, their chapter 10 zoning plan. And if you would like a better definition of what it means, I think Brian Standing would be the person to ask that. I think David has pointed out more than once that problems we run into commercial is there's just as good a chance that a good commercial business opportunity take place on Rome Corners Road as there is on Fish Hatchery Road.
We should say Lone Corners is open for development for commercial. We shouldn't say just on a case-by-case basis.
How do you know today what is going to come to you 2 years down the road and where it's going to be located?
We tell them, you can look here, you can't look over here because this, we've decided is not a good place. We should be telling the public what our plan is. Not on a case-by-case basis where any place in the county is open to commercial.
I think when you go case by case, you are putting more faith in your town board because they are going to make the ultimate decision.
Doesn't mean faith is well-founded. I'm saying that they would have the same pressures to approve one thing when there's somebody just as someone else who feels like they're being treated differently. I think the plan should tell people what we think where development should be allowed and what kind of. So that's why I'm finding myself after further thought in disagreement with some of the points that we raised.
Yeah, it's excellent discussion, and I'm glad that we're all hearing it together. I think on March 15th, when we get together with the town board and with Brian Standing. For those who don't know Brian Standing, he is the county senior planner, a senior planner at the county in the planning and development division. And so he does a lot of recommending work about their policy at the county level. And because we co-zone with the county, we work with it as well. And so we try to work with the county when we put together our land use plan. And sometimes we don't fully understand the county zoning as well as we understand our township zoning. So it's good to have him available to provide us the information we need. So you bring up some great points, Tim, and Arlen both. And you got another one.
I've got another landmine.
Okay.
And number 7.
Number
Where it
7.
sa- It says correct the land use errors.
Yes.
Well, somewhere's in here, some of the CSMs that are adjacent to the subdivisions were included in a blue area. It has been represented that was a mistake.
That is our belief.
Well, that's a belief that's out there, but I was looking through our policy on the land use and development of housing. And it is talking about having housing development, rural housing development, that it be adjacent to denser subdivisions. And I'm also looking at that there's 2 and possibly 3 divisions of land in blue CSMs that have happened in the last, since our comprehensive plan has been adopted. That did just that, where it took some CSM and divided it into 2 residential lots. Took a residential CSM and divided it into 2 residential lots. If we just carte blanche, say, oh, those blue sections are gone. They just don't disappear. We're going to be having to give notification. We're going to have to publish saying that this is going to be happening. This is going to have to be part of the public hearing. So it's nothing that just sort of happens out there. And will 99% of people who have those parcels that could be parceled in half, down to 2 acre lots. There's a good number of them that Jennifer has and Stephanie have identified, that if we just correct a mistake, that I'm not so sure we have good documentation that it was a mistake. That we don't have documentation and that will become a taking. So again, I'm looking at that being a landmine that is something that we cannot blithely do without counting on that this is going to be public hearing, big public notice, and everybody's got to be on board on this. And I don't even know that even if we do it, that it isn't going to be challenged.
Can I just say, as my foggy memory of when I was aware, we're using the term taking, and taking has a specific legal meaning. Constitution says you cannot take somebody's property without compensation. That's the kind of taking I think Harlan is talking about. We took away a right without giving them anything in return. We just took it away without accounting for giving them compensation. So that's where the lawsuits come in. When you're talking about takings, people have lost a right or some property such as the right, and they go to court and get compensation for what the government was supposed to pay them when they took that right away. That's a taking.
So let me ask you this. What would we be taking away if we took the blue off?
If you took the blue off, then those CSMs could not be redivided.
They can't be as is.
Pardon?
They can't be as is.
They can be as is.
I disagree.
Why so?
So
How so?
I got the land use map right in front of me and I see the dark blue. Most all of it is properties that are inside subdivisions. But Jennifer did find some properties that were dark blue that were outside of subdivisions. We had discussions about those properties and what to do with them. I go over to the legend of the map and I look at dark blue. It says rural development traditional subdivision. Now, in our land use plan, it says that traditional subdivision can have a density of 1 house for every 2 acres. What you, I think, are believing is if you're dark blue, you automatically get 1 house for every 2 acres. Could. And what rural development traditional subdivision, I believe, means that you have to, in order to get 1 house for every 2 acres, you have to be part of a traditional subdivision. That is the only time you get that 1 house for every 2 acres density. So the properties that are outside of the subdivision, that are not part of the subdivision, they have, what's the right term? They can be given consideration to become subdivision, but they are not currently subdivision. So they don't enjoy the one house for every 2 acres. Now, let me use an example. Susan Krebsbach was here, wanted a traditional subdivision on her property. We told her many times, it's a 2-step process. The first step is you have to make your property eligible in our township to have a subdivision on it. How do you do that? You amend the land use map and make her property dark blue. That makes her property eligible for a subdivision. It doesn't mean she can go out and start surveying off 2-acre lots on her property. But there's still the second step. That step is to bring in the plan or the plat and have it approved by the town board by fulfilling all of the requirements of the subdivision ordinance and all the parameters of the subdivision ordinance. If the town board approves it, then the county has to approve it, and then the village has to approve it. And after all that is done, she then has 1 house for every 2 acres for density on her property. Now, these properties that are outside of the subdivision, the first step's already done for them. They are dark blue, but the second step is not. If you take the dark blue away, you haven't taken anything away from them. Maybe 1 step in the process. But yeah, Susan came in here without any dark blue on her property and requested a subdivision. Like I said, it would be a 2-step process for her. If you take the dark blue away, you're just telling those people, if you ever want to become part of the subdivision, you've got a 2-step process, just like Susan and many others in the township. Arla.
I don't, well, obviously, I'm not agreeing with you, because we also have a precedent by the town of Oregon that has approved 2 and possibly 3 of the blue lots that were not part of a subdivision, but were CSMs adjacent to the subdivision. We have the one on Glenwood. There's a Devorah property that was by off of MM. And I was trying to remember one that I think we approved somewhere on Hillcrest. It's possible 3rd, but there's at least 2.
Well, the only one I'm familiar, and I've been on the plan commission 19 years, the only one I'm familiar with is the one I last name, Susan Latham. Am I saying that right? Susan Latham. And that was not, her property was dark blue. That property right here, and it's not part of the subdivision. It's right across from Beth Cox. Right here, this 9 acres.
Now, there's some,
What happened there?
what happened?
I was there and David was there
Okay, what happened?
and Andy was there. She came in and asked if she could have additional housing on her property. We said no, she didn't have splits. She went to Brian Standing at the county. Brian said, well, your property is dark blue. Let's look into this. Came back to the next plan commission meeting. This is when Daryl was chairing the plan commission. And Daryl decided, as the rest of us just watched on, that she would be allowed 1 more house on her property. Brian Standing was there and said, okay, I'll work with you on that. You get it through the township, I'll get it through the county. If that was a true one house for every 2 acre subdivision density. It's 9 acres. Why aren't there 4 houses on it?
Her choice.
No, it wasn't. It was Daryl and Brian came to a backroom agreement on that.
Well, whatever, back room or not, you're now in the open room.
So
And-
don't
and-
tell,
and it
you
happened.
can't tell me that that is a precedent for what we should be doing with these other properties that are dark blue.
It is a precedent in that it happened, back room or not. It's a precedent as to what happened. And anybody, and there's one more that happened in 2010, 2 years before. There's another, and there's possibly, and well, it may hurt and irk and all that. If I have one of these other parcels that are blue, we have a public hearing. It says, whoops, you're not going to be able to get it down to 2 acre lots, even though you have more than enough land to do so. That is going to be, again, that taking. And it is ready-made for objections. I've been hired by people who have problem lots like that and get them approved because of past actions of the board, of other boards, commissions, city, towns. And it is painful, but it happened. In other words, if you count that as a backroom thing, the taking is not an easy thing to be doing or easily justified when you have precedent, no matter how close to a Chicago deal as you can relate it to. Like I say, I was very much in favor of saying, throw this all out and start again with the development. Maybe there's a way of doing that with having these areas as rural development.
Wouldn't it make a lot more sense? These properties that are dark blue outside of the subdivision. If you want them to have rural development, why make them become part of a subdivision first? The subdivision doesn't want them. Can you imagine Susan Krebsbach coming in here and saying she wants to become part of Windridge?
She
The subdivisions don't want the additional traffic and additional houses. The property owner doesn't want to become part of the subdivision. Why not make it simple? Take the dark blue off the map. If the town board feels it's appropriate to have additional rural development in the town, make those properties colored pink. We can go over to the legend and have pink show rural development 1 to 2, or rural development 1 to 3, or rural development 1 to 4. Whatever the appropriate density should be. Instead of making them become part of a subdivision that no one wants them to be part of to begin with.
Oh,
Wouldn't that make a lot more sense?
okay, that's making an awful lot of assumptions in there in a negative way. I'm looking at that they are next to each other, that they have been neighbors a long time. And it wouldn't, if it would make sense to turn these areas into rural development type classification rather than a subdivision, because they're all CSMs. I'm seeing other CSMs that are part and parcel within the subdivisions, And this is something to be making a recommendation. And I don't find it simpler. I find it very complex to be doing a taking. I don't find that very simple at all.
Answer me this, if Arlen, we got some properties on ML, for like 4 acres apiece. Why is that dark blue?
Why is that?
Why should it be
Where are those parcels?
by the landscaper there on ML?
Craig, yeah.
And then. Where we at? Looking at M&M's down here. It's not blue, okay, it's north of A.
It's next to the Country Meadows, right, you're talking about?
No, down, way down. Oh,
Great.
Down further, down here.
Yours is a little different.
This is 2012.
I thought so.
When did that- What's the date on that one? Is that
Between the landscape.
2009?
It's this one right here. We got too many maps.
What's your, your 09?
I guess it'd be these right here.
09, well, they're not on the 12, they're on the 12 now. Don't know,
So you've got,
I don't know.
you got some parcels that are only 4 acres in size.
I don't know why they're on there, there's no other subdivision.
So most of these parcels, in order to satisfy the subdivision part, if the county defines a subdivision as 5 lots created within, I think, 2 years' time. So in order for them to have a subdivision, they gotta have at least 5 lots. And the house that's already on there can't count toward that, because that's been there many, many years. So you gotta have 6 lots on a property in order to be a subdivision. Our minimum lot size in subdivision is 2 acres. So you got 6 lots at 2 acres apiece, 12 acres is the very smallest parcel you could have that would be able to have a subdivision on it. You gotta have a road, you gotta have access to the property, so probably 14 acres is the smallest parcel you could have to have a set subdivision on it. I doubt whether many of these parcels are 14 acres in size. So the only way then that they can satisfy the subdivision requirement is to become part of the existing subdivision that they're contiguous to. But the covenants oftentimes don't allow that. And you have legalities, legal implications. Plats don't allow for additional density in the subdivisions. Take the dark blue off, and if you want to have rural development there, put in pink and say it's rural development 1 to 2.
That was a complex way of coming to a point. I don't know about all the definitions that are here. We don't have them in front to be helpful. Brian Standing was here. If we start turning these into pink and have the same rights that they had as
Well, they'll have more rights. They won't have to become part of the subdivision.
well, they're not part of the subdivision now.
Yeah,
They're
but
not-
they
they're
would
not part of
have
the
to be,
ordinance.
they would have to become part in order to get the density.
No, they don't. They don't. They do not
It
have to. they
says
don't- they
rural
don't-
development, traditional subdivision. You gotta be traditional subdivision in order to get the rural development.
Mr. Standing is gonna be here next month.
I agree. Let's leave
We
it to him.
could be posing that technical question to him on principle. On principle. If we take by Raven Oaks, that little group of CSMs.
Yep.
That is in their little corner, they're wrapped on two sides by Raven Oaks, and they have the street frontage there. And the town of Montrose is next to them. If we determine that the periwinkle, pink, yellow, orange, something, the color is irrelevant, but if they maintain their rights or take, and that is not a taking, that they retain their redevelopment rights that are defined by the blue area. Fine. Then they have retained their options.
Careful now, I think you're starting to agree with me.
Oh, I'm saying, I don't have a problem agreeing with you, but I think it's just, how do we get there?
Number one.
Remember, the landmine that we're talking about is just lightly just removing it.
Number
And you gotta replace it with something that has an equivalent positive to
Number one, we only make recommendations.
them.
Number two,
But we make recommendations, and we should strongly make
we can make,
recommendations.
if that's what the majority of the plan commissioners agree to, that's what we'll do. However, it will be the town board that decides, and they have legal counsel that they can work with.
Correct. Now, we are also, in attending the town board last week, I was very much taken by, there are a ton of issues that the town board is dealing with. Whether it be the finances, the truck, the torque, garbage pick, potential garbage. There are a ton of things that the board is doing. We have been delegated to help them by becoming supposed expert advisors to town board. I think we should be doing this.
We do what we are told to do by the town board. We answer to the town board.
We answer the town board, but we also
If they
should be
tell us-
strongly recommending.
I understand right now Brian Standing's working on a rough draft. If he brings that rough draft back to the town board and they say they want to work with Brian Standing from here on in, that's what we do. If the
If
town
they
board,
do.
if the town board hands it to us and says, we want you to work with Brian Standing, that's what we do. It's whatever the town board tells us, that's what we do. We don't tell them,
We advise.
we recommend.
But we need to be taking a strong advising based on this, what we have. And avoiding the landmines
They
that I
tell
see
us,
that are out.
if that's what they want us to do, we'll be glad to do it. If they don't want us to do it, we don't.
Like we're doing at their peril.
Well, they are the elected officials.
They are the elected officials and they have to do that.
Jim,
Is it our understanding that Brian Standing, Guy County is making a rough draft based on 8 points that you presented to the town board?
yeah,
Because I disagree with some of those points. When do we get to talk about
Should talk about them at night with the town board and see what we want to do.
them? I mean,
All of us. I mean, the town board will be here that night too. That's why we want to go over all of it.
I got something to say. I agree with you, Brian. I think, I agree with you, but I will tell you that the intent when this was passed, and I don't know who put that on there about subdivisions on that map, but the intent is would allow people to divide that land. And I can think of one instance, and that would be, and I know there were several over the past years, but the one I can think of is on the corner of Glenway and Windridge, where that small house is. That those people wanted to build another house, so they had, and that was in the blue area, so they got permission to build that other house. They never did it, but they got permission. So the intent and what the practice in the past was to let them divide. Now, I don't say that I agree with that, but that's what's happened in the past.
That was at Wind Region and Hillcrest,
What's that?
Wind Region Hillcrest.
Yeah. If you turn into Windridge, you'll be on the right.
So I think it's really been a good discussion and it gives each of us some time or chance to think about this before the meeting on the 15th. So I think it's good to present different viewpoints. And that's part of our job too. So getting back to Tim's question, I thought I made it clear in my email. As you know, the Plan Commission has been working on a review and update of the town land use plan. The PC has come up with a list of recommended changes and or adjustments to the plan. There could be additional changes and or adjustments still to come. In addition, Brian Standing may present recommended changes as he helps with the plan rewrite. Brian Standing will soon be putting together a rough draft of the updated plan using the PC recommended changes. The PC invites the town board to offer input regarding the recommended changes before the rough draft is written. Nothing will be final until a public hearing has been conducted and all government parties have approved the update. If the town board has questions, concerns, or suggestions, feel free to contact the PC by March 15th. Remember, these are only recommended changes and the town board has the final say on any actual updated change. It was my desire to allow the town board to have a conversation with us prior to Brian Standing putting together the rough draft. My desire, my wishes were not met. Harlan, got a question. Did the town board request that my email be forwarded to Brian Standing?
This email?
Yeah.
Tell you, I don't know.
You know Wayne?
I'm not sure. Stephanie, did it go to the Brian or,
I did.
Stephanie, Jennifer did.
didn't Jennifer send it?
She forwarded it without, I think, I don't know this for fact. I think she did it without getting permission from the town board or consulting or contacting the plan commission. It wasn't my desire for that to happen.
I don't recall saying, send it to Brian. I just know that we said that we wanted to, I'm actually the one who brought it up. Said that I want to meet with the plan commission on the 15th with the board and Brian Standing. And that's when I told you at the last meeting to get them bullet points together. And that was all done and gave to the board. That's all the discussion that I can remember, and everybody was agreeable with it. And I know Tim and Arlen were both here. I don't know if you really recall anything that was also was said or not, but that's pretty much all we talked about, if I recall. I said, you guys get your things together and get it to me or the office before, well, I'm hoping around the first of the month. So it has time to get put together.
I have no problem at all with whatever the town board decides.
I want the plant commission to see what the town board comes up with before you meet. Before we meet on 15th. So I thought if I put a deadline of the 1st, that gives us a little leeway.
I think Jennifer took it upon herself to forward the email to Brian Standing. I think Jennifer told Brian Standing to start the rough draft. And I think Jennifer indicated to the town board that they should not communicate with the plan commission until the rough draft is completed by Brian Standing.
That came out in an email.
I saw that email.
Yeah, I did too.
I'll let each of you decide how to take all that.
I just want to make sure I have an opportunity to tell the town board that those items are not mine.
And
Then
you will-
again, that they're not what?
I'm not, Ryan is representing that that's what the plan commission is recommending to the town board. And
Right.
I'm saying I want to make sure I have the opportunity to say that I'm against some of those. Not all of them, but some.
My wish, Tim, was to allow us an opportunity to revise these 8 points and allow the town board to provide input to these 8 points before it went to Brian Stanley.
I understand that's a good idea. Still good. That's not gonna happen.
No, it's, the horses left the barn and the barn's on fire, whatever you say about it, so. Just so you guys understand, it was not my wish for it to work out the way it was. I wanted you guys to have an opportunity to revise these prior.
For what it's worth, it was submitted to the town board. It's a public document. Anybody had access to it.
So with that,
Did we interrupt Arlen's town board?
I probably,
Maybe more,
we have
With the meeting coming up on the 15th.
we haven't quite gotten to that point. Anything else anyone want to discuss regarding the land use plan update? Sharon, you look like you want to say something.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Does Dane County zoning have any connection whatsoever with our land use plan?
Yes, they do.
And what is that connection?
So Roger Lane would be the Dane County zoning administrator. And there's a number of things, as you know, when it comes to the county, we can have policies that are stricter or the same as the county, but oftentimes we cannot have policies that are more lenient than the county.
We cannot have policies that are more lenient.
Lenient, yes, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, we have to be careful that
Okay,
way.
and explain to my simple brain, when we have all of these parcels that are zoned RR 2, 4, 6, 8, and RM 4, 8, 16. The zoning for those parcels say one residential unit per parcel.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I have a 16-acre parcel that is zoned RM 16,
Yeah.
I am allowed one residential unit. Is that correct?
That is correct. The Shapiro's are an example on Purcell Road. They have, and then there was the one right next to them as well. Honeyacre. One house only. There's only one split attached to that property. Now, again, if we're gonna have TDR, those properties would be eligible for a transfer of development rights, should they decide they want to spend the money to buy it,
Okay,
unless they're deed restricted. Well, I see now the county, I think, automatically deed restricts properties like the Honeyacre and the Shapiro, and you brought up the one tonight. County automatically deed restricted if
do
there's.
they do they require deed restrictions for residential zoning like RM and RR?
Yep.
Okay, what about FP1?
FP1 you cannot build on. So it can- unless it's a CUP and the farmer lives in the house. Or
You rezone it.
the only way you can rezone it is you gotta have a split. The only way you can rezone it.
You could buy a split. and rezone.
You can't, because we are, or at least the language we have come up with so far, says that the receiving area of TDR cannot be FP1, it cannot be FP35, it cannot be FPB, or it cannot be NRC. Those are the four zoning districts that farmland preservation
I got it.
protects.
Everyone here in this room realize that.
I think we can be reminded of it every now and then.
I would hope so. We talk about it enough, so.
Okay, let me throw this out then. And I'm only asking these questions because I can't get it through my brain. Okay? We have an property that's zoned FP 35. And they've sold all their, or they've used all their splits. And sold them, they've used them. But they've got a little corner of woods in this one corner of their acreage. And they want to buy a split from someone else and transfer it to that little corner. They can't do that. Am I correct?
Not if it's zoned FP 35, no.
Okay.
Not the way the language, now the town board may change it. They may say we want the FP properties to be eligible to receive splits, but our plan commission has said no, that,
Okay,
that protects it from a farmland preservation standpoint.
but I just wanted to make sure that I'm the only one that's not on that page.
The Schillingstead property is an FP1,
Yes,
not eligible for, the way we've got it written, to buy a split and transfer it to that property, not eligible.
but they can rezone it. Can they not, and have a residence?
They're out of splits. No,
So that was gonna be my question, Brian. What you're saying is the, I don't say the ability, but the requisite to change zoning is having a split.
if you're FP zoning. The only way you can, see, farm preservation, you're not supposed to build on outside of the splits. So if you're out of splits, you're out of luck. And we have a double layer by saying that TDR will not be allowed on FP zoning either, as far as the receiving area. They can be a sender. Be glad to take the split off the ag land, save the ag land and put it on R somewhere. That's the whole purpose of the TDR is to you got these 20-acre RMs, you know, why not put the houses there and save the farmland?
Right, I agree
Problem
with
is the
that.
farmers are the ones with the splits.
Can you repeat your first question? You said you had different zonings, but you couldn't do a split, you said? State what's your example of the first one?
If I have a piece of property that's zoned RM16,
Right, how many acres is it?
16,
16, okay.
I have one, I can put one house there, one
Yep.
residence. That's it.
I have never seen a case where a property, if you were, say, on Purcell Road there, that Shapiro bought 2 splits when they bought their, I guess it's a 20. I think we would make them set that up in 2 different lots right from the start. So they would be allowed 2 lots because they have the 2 splits.
Back to
But
Sharon,
only 1 house per lot, yes.
go back to Sharon's example. If there's an RM16 sitting out there and there's an established house on it, and let's say hypothetically, we get into TDR. That homeowner that owns that RM16 has that house. Physically, they have 4 2-acre parcels that a house could go on. Can they be the receiving area of TDR in an RM16?
Residential zoning would be allowed to be a
So
receiving area.
So then that RM16 could increase, I don't want to say in density, but it could have another house.
That's my understanding, yes.
And that's because we don't have to change the zoning already. If they took a smaller spot, they wouldn't be RM16, they'd be RM something.
They have to change the residential zoning.
We would allow that to happen in that scenario.
According to the way we have our TDR language in place at this point, yes. The splits are primarily, the transfer will probably primarily go to RR and RL and come from FP. That's pretty much what the flow will be.
So let's look at someone that has, they think they have four, they think they should have 4 splits or 4. They're not splits because they're residential property and maybe they're next to or across the road from a subdivision, as, let's say, Beth Cox. And I don't want to use her as a true example, but she feels she has 2 splits or 3 splits. Now, is her property zone FP 35 or FP 1?
It all depends what it was zoned back in 1994. Yes, exclusive ag zoning means that it had to be zoned exclusive ag or A1 back in 1994. If it was, then there were some splits. If there was at least 35 acres, there would be some potential splits there. Now, whether they've been used, what's happened to them since then, that's what the density study determines. And one thing, just for those listening in, just so everyone knows, we have never created more splits. Whatever splits were available as of December of 1994, that's it. We keep using splits as you see houses, like in Jason's case, houses or lots get created from the splits. But we never have created more splits since that 1994. Yes.
Can I ask a question? So when you say buy a split, that's just paying the fee to enable an already existing split to proceed.
A split that's already existing. We have farmers who don't want to use the splits. They want to save their farm for farming. And so we are setting up a policy with transfer development rate policy. Primarily the county's version of it. A couple little changes, but it would allow, instead of Jason, maybe he wants to build one house on his property, and with the second split, maybe he decides, maybe I'll sell that to somebody who wants to. We occasionally have people come in here and say, I have an elderly parent, I'd like to build another house on my residential lot. Well, sorry, you don't have a split, you can't build another house on your residential lot. But if Jason wants to sell a split, and they want to buy a split, why not allow it to happen? It saves the farmland, and it does some good for the other people that want their elderly parent to live next door to them. And they got acreage, you gotta have at least 2 acres. 2 for the house that you currently live in, 2 more for an additional house. So you gotta have at least 4 acres in order to make it work. But,
Thank you. I appreciate you letting me put that question.
Jeff,
So is there a geographic area where the split can be sold, or it's anywhere in the township, or?
the way we're setting it up is the Village of Oregon has told us, and I don't think we have a map that we can put up to show. They have a future urban service area as part of their village mapping. They don't want any splits brought into that area or sold out of that area. So we have to avoid that future urban service area. By the way, it covers Beth Cox's place. She won't be able to. Anyway.
Right, I know that.
Maybe Stephanie can.
I thought I had it separate than these, but
It's the red dash line.
yeah, I know we have it in our book.
Outside the villages.
outside of the village's urban service area, we are opening up to the entire township to send, but not to receive. Receive, you gotta be, you can't be FP1, FP 35, FPB. FPB is farm preservation business, or NRC, which is natural resource conservation. We will not allow splits to be transferred to those 4 zoning districts anywhere in the township. That's the way that we have set it up. That doesn't mean the town board might change it. We don't know. It's not a done deal yet. So.
I don't have it on this computer.
I've got a copy of it.
I would say, I don't know, 1/4 of the township is taken up with it. Village and future urban service area, something like that. So. Well, if you live near the village, you probably will not be able to participate. in PBR, because that's- Any more discussion?
Thank you for answering my question.
Oh, anytime. That's what we're all about here.
Yes, I got a question for Tim. You know, you came here to talk and then Marlon started in it. I didn't get a chance to ask a question. Were you saying that you thought limited family businesses should be identified? Or rather than done on a case by case basis, is that what you were trying to say?
When I made my comment about us deciding where these things go, I guess I'm echoing thoughts that have been expressed by other members of the commission, where it's our plan, not Brian Standing's plan or the county's plan. We get to tell the county what we want.
Exactly.
And what I'm thinking is that, especially with commercial, instead of just saying any old place in the township, let's tell people who are interested in commercial sites where they can have them, but where they can't. What do we want to protect? From Quick Trip or whatever else qualifies for it.
Okay, you're not talking about the guy that wants to start a car repair business in his garage.
I'm not talking, I'm talking about an operation, business
okay.
operation.
Okay, understand. I wasn't so.
Kind of discriminatory too, because his land is the same as my land. I can't have it because you told that guy he could have the land over there for first. To me, that's kind of discriminatory.
At least everybody knows ahead of time what it is. And person who's going to get not a lot, we're talking about not having commercially zoned land, he can come in and make his pitch for why he thinks he ought to be included. So I'm saying it's.
Then you're back to case by case again.
That's before we create the plan. I want everybody to know ahead of time where they can be looking. Or if I buy a house on kitty corner from the vet clinic on Fish Hatchery Road and CC, I want to know if I'm going to be looking at a Quick Trip or Gentleman's Club or whatever else it is that somebody might want to build there. Is that going to be available to commercial development in the future or not? We should be able to tell people that.
That's the way it's been. For GC, it's been designated. The red arrows. I think there's pros and cons either way. We have, I might as well talk about it because I've had a young man that for 2 years now has been just patiently waiting for us to get this land use plan completed. He would like to do something very similar to what Paul Morrison is doing. Have a woodworking business where he makes furniture out of the dead tree or the trees that come down in Madison and whatever else that would otherwise be put into a landfill or thrown away. He has an opportunity to buy 2 acres on Parsons property, Roger Parsons property. Roger's patiently waiting too. Right now, county says, when they look at our land use map, that property is not eligible because it's not a designated area for commercial. GC commercial. Paul Morrison is GC. The Roger Lane has told this young man that he should be GC as well, general commercial. If we go case by case, I think he's got a good shot of being approved in the township, because I think the town board would say, hey, that's a perfect fit for our township. That's a good business. It's working well. And Paul Morrison, he actually is going to be a little smaller, I think, than Paul with his business. If you leave it the way it is, where you have designated areas, he's not going to be allowed to have that business. So there's a case where it works against maybe what the township would like to have.
What are the neighbors?
What that?
What do the neighbors say? I bought this with no commercial possibility. And that's what everybody agreed to. I bought this house because I'm not gonna have a commercial development in my.
I think this is just my opinion. I think there is a good reason why case by case is a good fit. Because the town board can say, there's too many, this is a business or a highly populated area and it's not a good fit. But if he's in the town board has to be able to look at each one of these petitions and say, is this a good fit for our township? And do it on a case by case basis. We've run into this before where you got something that you'd like to have in your town, and then the county says, no, you designated this area over here for that type of commercial. So you can't have it be over there. So there's pros and cons. You make good points, Tim, that if a person's buying a property, they'd like to know, well, is commercial available? You know, can a commercial business get started right next door to me? I don't want that. On a case by case basis, you can't guarantee that it won't someday be commercial, because it could possibly. So there's pros and cons. You gotta see both sides of it, decide what's best.
I don't want this for you to take it the wrong way, because it's not meant as a criticism of you, Brian, but just as an example. You tell us about a guy you've known who you've been talking to for 4 years and you think it would really be a good fit. And now for the first time, the neighbors are finding out about it and going to vote on it. It's already a done deal in the mind of some people who have been.
It's nowhere near a done deal.
You just told me how you'd vote.
Huh?
You just told me how you would vote.
No, I'm speculating what the town board would say. I'm saying, it's a town board. I just make a recommend. I'm just one vote on a 7-board panel that makes a recommendation. Town board doesn't have to follow that recommendation at all. And I mean, the town board is going to do what they feel is appropriate.
And somebody's talking to someone on the town board now. We don't know about it, so it's the time of the hearing. We'll never.
Well,
find
I
out.
get a lot of phone calls. People say, what's allowed for from a zoning standpoint?
That's a black and white question.
So this young man calls and said, what's allowed for from a commercial zoning standpoint? And I say, well, talk to Roger Lane. He'll walk you through it. So he went to Roger Lane. He came back and said, county says I'm not available. And I said, well, that would be my guess that that's what they would come up with. But we are working on an update. I think he should be informed that we're updating our land use plan. I said, things might change. I don't know.
Well, have them come in and ask questions like these nice people have, instead of calling you up and asking what's cooking, Brian.
I think a lot of people are.
People are calling the clerk's office asking for information. And I've heard recently about a particular resident who's calling members of the town board and trying to get private opinions on things before it's ever brought up. And I just think that's bad practice for any of us to engage in. Should come to the public hearing like everybody else and put it out, Neil.
Well, I did tell him, I said, if and when we get the land use plan updated, I will contact you so that you and Roger can come in and you can present whatever it is to the plan commission that you're wanting to do. So we'll go from there. I'm not, believe me, I'm not making decisions for the plan commission outside of these meetings. How many emails do you get from me? None of you guys do, unless you email me first. I don't discuss plan commission business outside of these meetings.
That's
I don't
what
know
I
if
think,
we- I
that's
don't
what
know
I
if
think
we-
it's supposed to be.
I think it is too. I agree.
I don't know that the woodworking shop is necessarily a good example, because that's within the immediate development area around the village.
Well, the village would have to give their approval as well, no doubt about
So
it.
right now, they've already said that is targeted for
That's a whole
residential.
nother, that's right there.
That's-
That's a whole nother,
That right there should be, the person should.
it's another factor. So it's part of their extraterritorial jurisdiction. Yeah. So there's a lot of hurdles he's gonna have to go over, through hoops to go through, or however you wanna say it. But it just shows there's pros and cons to case by case versus designated areas. More to think about. Anything else?
And we'll be adjourned.
We gotta check on communications. I think, first. Just hold that thought for a second. Any communications? Town board items, Arlen?
Not any more than the one I just talked to you about, is the 15th, and the town board will be here. And we'll go through it with- yeah. Darren's standing as long as he gets here. You know, otherwise it'd be a waste of meeting. If he doesn't come to answer some of these questions, so, you know.
We can find out ahead of time if he will be here.
Yeah.
Town board can call off this.
I think.
Yeah, do you want me to set it up the same way that we did the last one, where it was a joint between both of them?
I think whatever the town board wants, however the town board wants to do it. And Stephanie, if you do get a rough draft, if you could send it out, either part of the packet or please get it out.
I'll send it out whenever I get it.
That'd be great. Appreciate that.
I'll move with you.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Question you may want to ask is split summer. If you do this today, I would 5 years from now, somebody's saying, hey, anybody selling me split? Yeah, and you unsplit it.
I don't mind having a discussion as long as it goes.
Many, 30 years ago.